Hello, my name's Carl. This is my backyard. Welcome to Carl's Backyard. It's midsummer of 2020 and I'm going to take a walk around the yard and see how things are going. Here from the porch you can see I've got the two hanging baskets, the philodendron basil and kangaroo paw fern. They're both doing great. Got the spider plant that I just inherited and it's living temporarily here on the quiet edge of the porch, so I can figure out a better spot for it. Here at the top edge of the top end of the stream, things are going pretty well. You can see I've got the two bird nest ferns in the background there, a variegated one and a regular one. And this maidenhair fern in the foreground is doing really nice. It's planted right there in the edge of the stream, so it has constant supply of water. And this corner pretty much stays in the shade all the time. And down here at the top half of the stream, you see that rock there with the water coming off of it. I'm really loving the way that rock worked out. I saw that rock at the rock store and had a vision pretty much of that in my head when I picked it up. And I'm really happy that I managed to pull it off. And the way the water shoots down it like a slide and then ramps off the end. I'm really happy with that. I'm also really happy with how the rabbit's foot fern and the aglaonemias are doing back there. The aglaonemias I thought were dead. The rabbit's foot fern was in really sad shape, but they both bounced back. The rabbit's foot fern is doing really well. I'm really happy with that. Also really happy with the way the impatiens are filled in. And they've just exploded all over the stream this year. And here on the ground in front of me, a lot of little plants that don't have a permanent home yet. The part of the yard they were going to go into is still a work in progress. And this green cart is becoming a permanent feature here in the middle of the pathway. You can see the begonia back there on the other side of the stream. He's really flushed out. He's real happy with this spot there. And over here, I got foxtail fern, a bunch of caladiums, stainless steel plant, some other plants, all waiting for a permanent home. There's a red banana. It doesn't get a lot of sun over here. It gets morning sun and then dappled sun through the day. So it's not as red as it could be. But it's still growing good. This is the one that almost died in my office over winter. So I'm real happy that it bounced back at all. And it's doing good. In the background there, you see I got a parlor palm that really did not appreciate being moved out this spring. And it scorched and burned pretty bad. And I've tucked it back there in the corner, let it recuperate. I think it's pretty much recuperated. There's a lot of green back there. There used to be a lot of yellow and brown. Now there's a lot of green. So here in the near future, I'm going to pull it out of there. It's got a vine growing in it that I need to take care of, and then I'll trim out whatever dead stuff's left and see what I'm left with. I love how big this caladium's gotten, growing there on the edge of the stream. The Diffenbachia in the background there turned to mush at the end of winter, or at the beginning of spring. It was turned to mush in the kitchen. I brought it outside and it just completely turned to mush. I was pretty sure it was dead, but I was too lazy to get rid of the pot, and then it's put up some new leaves, so I'm happy I didn't get rid of it. Begonia luxurian, that's what that is. I was stuck on the first name. I could remember luxurian, but not begonia. Yeah, I still can't remember it. Begonia. And I got my variegated fishtail palm. He's probably twice as big as he was when I got it, with 3 times as many leaves. He seems happy there. He's putting out new leaves. He did get a little crisp when I first brought him out here, but the leaves recovered, and he's doing good, and he's happy. I like that caladium there. It just landed in that pot because the pot had been sitting empty waiting for something to go in it. And the caladium plant, when I got it, was was kind of pushing me for space over here on this corner. And I just tossed it over into the pot. And it looks good there, so I think it's going to stay in that pot for a while at least. You can see I've got 2 bird of paradises, one big one, one small one. And they're sitting right there on the edge of the waterfall. That way they can get as much water as they want. And they're in relative shade. Again, it's morning sun, dappled afternoon. Not a lot of sun coming over here. I had issues with the leaves curling. You can see the small one still has leaves curled. But I was having issues with the leaves curling up on both of them. And ever since I moved them over here, the big one at least, is flattening its leaves back out. And it's definitely growing good and looking good, sitting there on the edge of the stream. Do a long shot of the pond. You can see the floating hyacinth, or the water hyacinth floating in the water there. You can see the fish. They haven't been fed yet this morning, so they're expecting food. The pond cypress is doing great, growing on the edge of the pond. I don't think can't step back far enough to show how tall he's gotten. But he's about as tall as I want him to get. Here in the fall, probably I'll chop the top a couple inches off and then discourage him from growing any taller. Encourage him to fill out in the middle. We move over to here. I got some more plants sitting behind this bench. Obviously just temporary placement. They just kind of landed here. It's a nice place to keep them. I got that Coleus Nash Rambler. It's growing good. It's sharing a pot with I forget the exact name, spirulina or something like that. Not spirulina, that's an algae. Spirea, I don't know. It's sharing the pot with something that I probably shouldn't have put in that pot, so I'm going to be pulling that out in the not too distant future. You can see my shrimp plants. I forgot they are Aztec Shields? Mayan Shields? No, Aztec Shields. No, it starts with an M. Oh well. They're there, they're doing good. The shrimp plant's there. That's the climbing shell plant or something like that. Hasn't flowered yet, but it's growing. I don't know how I feel about this trellis thing that I made for it to grow up. I'm not sure I'm going to be keeping it there. I might try to carefully unwind it or wind it around something else instead. There you can see the fish. The floating baskets of impatiens over there. About a week ago, they got knocked over in a storm and floating upside down for about an hour or so in the water. I flipped them back over, and they were both reasonably okay. You can see the one that has flowers looks a little more worse for wear. That's from being knocked over. The closer one that's completely bare, it got knocked over a couple days ago at night. And I didn't know it, and it was kind of late in the morning before I came back out to feed the fish, saw that it was upside down, and the fish had definitely helped themselves to that plant, and they've chewed back all the stems and leaves and whatnot, so it's pretty rough. But again, the fish got a free meal out of it. They didn't seem to mind too much. A pair of water lilies opening up over here in the water lily corner. You can see my bridge has a bunch of a bunch of rocks that have fallen off. The mortar didn't work so well once winter came and it started to heave from the frost and freezing and thawing. So a lot of the bricks are not as attached, or not a lot of the rocks aren't as attached as they had originally been. I'm going to have to come back and redo that with some other kind of adhesive and get that cleaned up. That's on the to-do list. We got this guy here. He's doing really good. I'm happy about that. I think I'm going to get some more of those so I can have a little patch of these dudes hanging out. And got a tiny little baby one there. I just recently put the moss into that pot along with the dragon's tongue. The dragon tongue's been there for a while. Had a bare spot in front where the moss is now, and after several weeks of thinking I needed to put some moss in there, I finally went and pulled some moss and just shoved it in there yesterday or the day before. So hopefully it takes root and and continues to do well with there. There's the fish again. Let's go back up here, look at the waterfall. You see those 2 pots of ginger over there. I put them, they had been sitting up behind where they are now on the rocks, but they dried out super fast. Every day they'd be bone dry. And so I pulled them and sat them in the edge of the pond to let them soak up and get a good soaking of water. And then I walked away and forgot about them. It's been probably 3 or 4 days now, and they're not looking any worse for wear. They were already pretty much in. They were in that shape before I put them in the water, and they're not looking any worse for being in the water. So I'm just going to let them sit there and see how long they can last. It is blocking the bubbling rock, so that's kind of a bummer. But the bubbling rock was always supposed to be one of those peekaboo things anyways. You got the wetland up here. You see those purple shamrocks became all the craze over the winter. I'd gotten some last year before they were a hot houseplant item. Put them there in the ground, and they did good for the summer. And then they died off in the winter, and they had no sign of them coming back in the spring. I had already ordered replacements for them, though. Unfortunately, I ordered replacements before they became a popular houseplant, because as soon as they became a popular houseplant, I went back and looked, and you can get half as many as I had originally gotten for the same price now. I got a dozen for I don't remember how much it was, but when I went back to order more, they were 6 for the same price if a dozen had been a couple months ago. So thank you, houseplant influencers, on raising prices of plants. You can see I got the wildflowers, I'm not sure what they are, black-eyed Susans maybe. The leftovers from when this whole corner was a wildflower garden. And those guys hung out and managed to stay. They come up after the vines, the climbing vines, the clematis and the honeysuckle on the back trellises. After they flowered, then these wildflowers come up and make a nice splash over there for the summer. So I'm probably going to wind up leaving those wildflowers every time they come up, but I kept saying I need to pull them, and do something real over there. But then they went into flower, and now I'm like, well, I like them there now. You see over there I got my Alocasia poly that had again turned to mush, and it's recovered. The Boston fern that was pretty much dead. It's a blonde Boston fern or a tiger fern, depending on where you get it. It had pretty much died off, and it was just sitting on the bench to see what happened. And what happened is that it shot a bunch of fronds out the bottom of the pot. So I've got an idea for a place to put it. I just need to get it there. Obviously, this whole corner of the pond remains unfinished. That's the unfinished corner of the pond. I'll eventually get a deck and wooden walkway. I want to redo some of the plumbing. I want to redo some of the plumbing before I go and build a sidewalk deck pathway over it. There's the fish desperately looking for food as if they're never fed. We were looking at the wetland filter. Okay, the hostas over there are done blooming, so I need to go back and cut the flower stalks off here in the near future. Did you see my Alocasia Maya's mask? Alocasia Maya mask. I don't remember. You can see it's doing well. The Alocasia Mojito, it's recovering from when it got knocked over, and knocked over a couple times and then repotted because the pot it was in was just too small to hold up that much leaf. So it's recovering nicely. You got the Alocasia stingrays there. That's an assorted, a lot of canna lily varieties. There's some canna lilies in the stream down here. And again, the poor bridge will eventually look like it did in my head when I started. Probably not this year. That red banana in the background there is in the back of the wetland. He's doing really well. You can see it's growing big, tall leaves. In general, everything's doing really well in the wetland. There's a mix of plants. It's pretty well crammed in there, so everybody's crowded for space. And the idea is we'll have them in the wetland for a while, and then once I have the garden on the other side of the yard set up, I'll be able to move a lot of the plants over to there and not have such a crowded wetland filter. In the meantime, though, it's doing well, keeping the pond clean. In the background there are currently no real wildflowers flowering in the wildflower garden. There's one sunflower sticking up high, but it's missing half its petals when I walk around to the other side. The wildflower garden did pretty well over the spring. Did keep flowers coming. They were kind of sparsed out. It's very densely seeded. So I mow it down this year, and when it goes back next year, hopefully it'll have thinned out a little bit, and I'll get a more consistent display of flowers out of it. You can see again all these plants just hanging out until they get a real place to live. They work pretty well down here, though. I like the way all that's been tossed randomly together. Got the nice splash of color in the middle, breaking up the palms. The flowers along the bottom of the palm, the Majesty palms. I probably should have, would have cut them back at some point so that they'd flush out faster. But every time I grab the scissors and I walk over there, I see new flower buds. And so I'm kind of not giving them a good cut back yet. I turn just a little bit here in front of the horribly neglected other corner of the yard. I'm going to move over to here. So here at the edge of the other corner of the yard, I've got a collection of plants, pots, that again just landed here and are waiting for a place to live. And I wish I could remember the name of that one in the middle with the really cool leaves that I like so much, but can't remember the name of it. My pineapple lilies, ordered 2-3 packs of a variety, and I wound up with probably 2 different kinds, and none of them are the happy colorful ones that of course were shown in the picture when I bought them. It's my golden ghost pine tree there. It's super discounted because it's really in rough shape. But it seems to be recovering from being transplanted. It's recovering nicely from being transplanted, and I'm gonna wait, give it a couple years, see if it doesn't flush out again. It lost a lot of branches at the nursery due to an error on their part, and got a super great deal on it. So I went ahead and picked it up, and hopefully it'll recover, and in a couple of years be a really impressive looking plant. The banana tree in the back, walk around. That banana tree, that's pretty much where the trench is. I dug a temporary trench just in a convenient spot last year, come fall. Dug a temporary trench where I put a lot of the canna lilies and the calicases and this banana tree at. And then I covered it with a good amount of mulch. It overwintered, and when stuff started to go back up through the mulch, I went ahead and pulled the mulch off and pulled out everything except for this banana because it doesn't have our new home yet. It was in the wetland last year. I wanted it over here on this side of the yard in the tropical garden. Eventually will be a tropical garden. But it sat with the corm, rhizome, root, whatever you want to call them. It sat with those exposed, just sitting in the trench for probably 3 months before I found myself with a wheelbarrow full of dirt and decided to dump it on that so it would actually be in the ground instead of just sitting on the ground. So it's had a rough year this year. I However, once I got dirt on it, the roots are able to stay moist and protected from the sun. It's flushing out nice. Has some really good leaves going on it. This corner of the yard will eventually be a tropical garden. The sun's coming out now, so I don't know how well the contrast is working. But here in front of this pile of wood, we've got a bunch of plants. I got six different varieties of hibiscuses. One of which is flowered already, one of which is about to flower. It's got the bud, the flower bud on it. That's my foxtail palm. Let's back up. I don't know how well you can see that. There it is, the foxtail palm. And my little baby fiddly fig. Over there I got the two Chinese windmill palms and a variety of grasses and a yucca plant, some bamboo. Over there's the tortoise enclosure. There's no tortoise in it right now. I only bring them out when I'm going to be out most of the day. Simply because I just don't trust that enclosure, I guess. I want to maybe be out here to make sure a raccoon doesn't come along. We got raccoons and possums and rabbits and squirrels. And he's still a teeny tiny little tortoise. So I don't want to leave him out here by himself. Here on the corner you can see my dracaenas hanging on. There's the Marble Queen Pothos that didn't do well when I brought it outside. It's definitely not climbing that pole. It's doing better than the Scindapsus over here though. That's another little baby bird of paradise plant. And I did just recently, I think last weekend, I did replace the flowers in here with some fresh flowers from hanging basket. And they're doing they've got to flush back out. They didn't appreciate being tore out of their basket and shoved into here. So hopefully they'll flush out better than the last set of flowers I put in there that never really recovered. But that's pretty much it. There's the mess that will eventually be a tropical garden. There's the plants that will eventually be a tropical garden. There's the fire pit in the far corner of the yard. And there's the paver base that will eventually be a deck. And there we have it.